So to start with, you're going to need one of these and some of these. You can get them from that store on the internet that's named after a jungle. They're not very expensive. The concept here is pretty simple. What we're going to do, we're going to create a cross mark here. We're going to drill a couple of holes. We're going to feed these things through. We're going to put these bearings on, which will create a self-centering jig that when you put on top of the stock that you're looking to use, you'll be able to twist it and it will create an automatic center finder that will twist on the stock.
So the first thing I'm going to do here is draw a line from corner to corner, which will create an X, and it'll give me dead center in that piece of plexiglass. Got this fancy new center finder. We're supposed to be using that on a circle, but it works on this square piece as well. Continue those lines with a ruler. Easy peasy. Now we're going to run some lines across the project too, because there's some straight line markers on the base of the router. We want the router dead center, and we want the roller bearing guides to be on a 45 off of that center. Now I went ahead and scratched the surface of that thing so that I could see the lines. There's one right there, one there, and there's one more there. We'll line those up with the crosshair, and then I will lay out where the holes are for the screws. Now the other thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw a circle in the center where the opening for the router bit passes, because it's an irregular shape and it will show me the position that I had the base in when I started. There's one of those marks right there, the second one there, the third one there, and I transferred them to the black plate. And it just dawned on me that I wanted to draw that circle in the center that I told you about. Just makes it easier to put it back together after you take it off and drill your holes. And we'll use a small bit here, and we'll progress from the small bit to a larger bit, stepping up gradually so as not to crack the plexiglass. I'm going to start with a small countersink bit, and after we get the holes to the correct diameter, we'll switch to a regular countersink reamer type bit. Using my thumb there to guide the drill to the center. Drink too much coffee in the morning and you'll shake all over the place. You won't be able to put that drill where you want it, so your thumb helps hold it in place. All right, let's go with a little bigger one here. Pretty straightforward stuff. Oh, almost lost a screw there. And as you can see, we flipped it over and we're now going to countersink the bottom. With the little screws, we didn't have to go with the big reamers. That straightforward countersink worked very well. We'll step up to a little bit bigger drill bit here so that we can get the screws through. And I did this very gradually, increasing the size on purpose because we didn't want to get it too big and create slop in the base. We want to keep it as tight to the original as possible. Still needs to be just a little bigger. And if you're not careful when that drill punches through and you slam that drill down there, you will crack that plexiglass. So take care when you're doing that. Hey, there we go. Now they fit. So now I'm going to put the collar back on here and line back up the holes, line up the marks, and then I will draw a line around the outside of this thing just as a reference. So the marks I'm putting down, I'm putting on top of the diagonal marks that we put on the plexiglass in the first step. That's where I'm going to locate the bolts for the bearings for the center finder. And I'll admit, after I did this, I put it together and they were too far apart. They were too wide. They needed to be more towards the center of the router bit. This was taken apart several times in order to get this thing to work properly. One thing to note, I'm doing this free-handed, drilling all these holes free-handed, and I think you would get a better outcome if you used a drill press. And in the end, I'm going to make another one of these. I have another plate, and I'm going to use the drill press to see how much better it works. You want those holes dead straight, and you want the countersink 45 to be dead accurate. Otherwise, the bolts will go through crooked and it will be off center. And as you can see here, I'm drilling the holes on the 45 marks. That was a good catch with that drill. I don't know if you caught that, but it almost went off the table. Making the holes big enough for the bolts to pass through. We'll take a reamer, countersink, and again you can see here that I'm wobbling the countersink back and forth. That's a no-no. You want to use the drill press. That needs to be straight. Bolts go through. Continue countersinking until the bolts are flush with the bottom of the piece of plexiglass so you can't feel any difference in height. And you should be good to go. Now, it dawned on me right there that those bolts should have been measured off of the center line of the router bit. So you'll see me take a tape measure here in just a second, or a ruler, and we will drill some new holes equidistant off of center. There's a big word, equidistant. Okay, here comes the ruler. We'll make some new marks and some new holes. I should have known better when I first did this. This needs to be precise. Shouldn't be any eyeballing it when you're making one of these things. Alright, let's knock some more holes in. Let's knock a hole in the right place. So the holes are done. The bolts fit flush. 2 bolts in. I'm going to put a lock nut on the back side of them to hold the bolts in. We'll snug down those lock nuts with a wrench. So when I started this, I thought 2 bearings on each bolt would be plenty. But then as I put those on, I thought to myself, a 3rd one will give me more ability to locate the starting point when you're dropping the router onto your stock. It'll act as a sliding fence. And here we have a piece of wood to show you how this is going to work. Like butter. The wrench will not fit under those bearings. With the amount of vibration there, I wanted to double check and make sure that they were tight. So I put a backing screwdriver on it and snugged it up a little further. Now we'll flip it over and tighten those nuts back up. And we're just about ready to mount the router back onto this piece. One more quick test to make sure it's going to roll. Alright, let's put this router on here and plunge a hole through the center of that plate. By now you're asking, why didn't he just take that paper off in the beginning? That was an insurance policy in case I made a mistake and I had to do some more drawing on the back of this thing. Some more layout work. I didn't want to have to write on glass and then have the marks all over the glass. Once I prove this concept works, we'll take the base plate back off, remove the remainder of the paper, and it'll look pretty. One more check for base plateness tightness for safety reasons before we turn this router on and that thing comes vibrating loose. Everything's good, let's plug it in. Always make adjustments with your tools unplugged. Basically what I'm doing here is the router is turned on and I'm slowly turning the depth adjustment knob until that router bit protrudes through the plastic. That way I know it's dead center. Alright, the moment of truth. Let's see if this thing will cut a center mortise down the edge of that board. Well, looky there, not too shabby. Let's get a center marker and prove that it's definitely in the center. Let's do it again. Alright, I've got my handy dandy plastic center finder. We're going to scratch a mark down the center of this board. And then we're going to run that router down that board 900 miles an hour and see if it cuts a center line. Let's see how we do. Uh-oh, quality control's on the scene. There he is, making sure I do this right. Let's see how we did. I can tell from a distance. I don't think you're going to get too much better than that. Right on the money. Alright folks, there you have it. A center finding mortising tool for your router. I hope you got something out of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Give us a like and a subscribe if you haven't done so already. Please leave a comment. I enjoy reading those. And as always, I'll catch you on the next one.